What is up, down, and sideways, all you beautiful individuals? This is another epi of League Unlocked. Flying Han Solo aboard that, you guessed it, Millennium Falcon today for Week 7. Global Power Rankings, the LEC had it off as they transition into playoffs, but we had regular season finales in the LCS and the LPL and some marquee top 4 matchups in the LCK that have absolutely now set the stage for a spicy ending, not just in terms of, important matches, but still kind of up in the air on who, not just the top seed, but the top 2 seeds will be heading into this road to MSI. And again, this King of the Hill format, seeding is probably more important than ever in the LCK. So we're going to have an absolute banger of an ending to the regular season. But we begin with that 20-11 board in an LCK squad that is fighting, battling to hold on to a top 5 spot to go to that Legends group for the next half of the split. And that is Hanjin Brion, who had a tough loss against KRX to end their winning streak. Again, 4 series in a row, all 2-0s. Finally comes to an end. So they get bumped down a few spots, but still, obviously, this team has far exceeded expectations and still the front runners for that final team to qualify for this road to MSI playoffs. So still hanging on to this board. I'd maybe accept Weibo Gaming as that other 20 squad who are 6-8, 3 series in a row, including a head-to-head win against JDG, and will 150% be a dark horse that probably gets at least one upset in these LPL playoffs. So we may very well regret not actually having them on this board, and they might end up going further than a squad like NIP, who had themselves a big win against Top Esports this week. So both NIP and Weibo, you best be paying attention to as these LPL playoffs roll on, because as we'll get later on this board, you are anything but confident in that kind of 2 to 4, maybe even 5 zone in the LPL heading into playoffs. So yeah, absolutely potential for some upsets there. Sandwich in between, you saw Team Liquid gets bumped down a few spots, and this is a combination of things when we're talking about now Team Liquid, FlyQuest, and Lion Gaming. Team Liquid, they get 2-0'd in that head-to-head against Cloud9. Not only are they less competitive than a squad like FlyQuest was, who pushed Cloud9 to the brink and almost 2-0'd them, but you combine that with the fact that FlyQuest took down Lion Gaming, and the end result is the big change. Well, not big, medium-sized change, as FlyQuest skyrockets 4 spots up into the 15 zone to be the second highest ranked LCS squad, ahead of Lion Gaming, ahead of Team Liquid. And the head-to-head against Lion obviously doing a lot of heavy lifting, coupled with, as I alluded to, that competitive series against Cloud9. And the rumors of the Scrim Gods are reaching the stage. Obviously, 100% the highlight of that head-to-head series was Griffin's Nasus in that third game. And we had a very contested back-and-forth game 1, even game 2 at times, but the Doge and D-Kane got way too ahead and snowballed out of control. Just running around picking up kills like it was your older brother smurfing in a normal game is honestly what Griffin looked like on this Nasus, just farming champions to no end. And obviously a little pocket pick like that, the Wither cooldown was, of course, a little bit disgusting, but seeing a nice little pocket pick, a nice bounce back in the development of FlyQuest, absolute treat to see. I think there's a lot of guys to kind of highlight. Quad has had some fantastic laning numbers. Masu and Cryogen have become an elite bot lane. We were just highlighting Griffin, but I want to talk about Gakos, who quietly had some Omega leads over both Castle and Dokla, who Castle, by the way, remains winless for Lion Gaming, since he's now this is week 2 of him being in the lineup, and it's only been Dokla who has picked up wins. Now, some of that is to do with the pick ban that was around it, and not fully the individual performances themselves of the two top laners for Lion, but still an interesting little stat to look at that people will completely overreact to. But Gakos was handling both of them easily, and he and this squad absolutely living up to the hype as we roll into playoffs. It's still, I think, incredibly close between those 3 LCS squads, and you can even throw in Cloud9 not that far ahead, despite being, again, a perfect 7-0 regular season, and we are very quick to pump the brakes because I feel, what was it, 2 years ago, 2024, I think we had an undefeated Team Liquid squad through the regular season, and everybody's talking about, is this the best LCS team of all time? And they went on to significantly underperform in the rest of the year. So we are very tentatively looking at this Cloud9 7-0 start, not exactly screaming how they're going to completely steamroll their way through playoffs. That is absolutely not going to be the case, and would not be surprised, as we said earlier, if any of these top 4 LCS squads are the ones lifting the trophy, whatever spring split trophy. I think it's just a normal trophy that they have this year, but it's a very contested top 4, and FlyQuest, I think, are the surprise. Mark and I both kind of like, wow, they're really hyping FlyQuest up, and by they I mean guys like Inspired, guys on Team Liquid saying how good they are. They're just consistently aggressive. They never back down, despite being, maybe it's just not knowing any better, being so many young players, but they do have right behind Cloud9 in terms of damage per minute, which means, yes, they like to fight. They like to fight often, and maybe even when they're at a disadvantage. But the synergy team fight wise is pretty top tier, again, for an LCS squad, and for one of the youngest rosters in the history of the LCS. So very excited to see FlyQuest push the other 3 and to have a playoff run that's about to be pretty darn wide open in North America. The other squads on this list, not much movement. D plus Kia, they lose to Hanwha. They're at 7-7. I still don't really know what to make of them. I definitely do not feel confident with them. And yes, bunched in with all these Western teams, I mean, the top tier West squads should be able to beat D plus Kia, who are like the 5th best team in the LCK, and I think the top 3 in both the LCS and the LEC are better than D plus Kia is right now, as obviously MCoy and KC did not play on the weekend, so KC stays in the same spot. We gave Cloud9 a little bit of a bump over Movistar. Ooh, said that really interestingly. Movistar Koi gets bumped down 1 spot. But again, Cloud9, we do have to give them some credit for going 7-0, even if we're not, oozing, overflowing with confidence for that 7-0 squad. We're not exactly oozing with confidence for Koi, even though they had a solid performance. But yeah, the theme really of not just the LCS or the LEC, but basically every region, save for the LCP and the LPL, as of course you also saw Team Secret Wales 7-0 still. The undefeated chain rolls on. Shout out to them. But aside from the LCP and LPL, completely wide open for the taking top 4. Maybe there's one that's a slight favorite, but it is far removed from years past where we've had one team regions, whether it's G2, Cloud9, FlyQuest, that nobody else has been contesting. It is completely wide open on that top half of the map. And it only gets further realized in the LPL that if you removed BLG, well, then it's very much wide open. But yeah, it's a one-team region at the moment for the LPL. And the main question has continued to be throughout the year, who do we trust as that next squad up? And truthfully, it's been a bit of a revolving door, moving carousel of squads that have kind of stepped into that second best team in the LPL role. Top Esports were there for a while, but they have definitely, I'm not going to say come off the rails, but taken a few steps back. They lost to NIP, and then they pretty convincingly lost to Billy BLG in that head-to-head. And AL and JDG both respectively had their massive win streaks, or not massive, 4 or 5 series, but again, have fallen off, and all 3 of these squads this last week failed to pass the test or the last 2 weeks, I guess, failed to pass the test that is not only beating BLG, but honestly just being competitive against them. And I think a lot of the issues remain the same for Top Esports. You're going, okay, there's still some suspect macro play, taking team fights that they have no business doing, and just kind of head scratching, overplaying their hands, mechanical miscues that this team has been associated with, even with multiple players on the roster. Anyone's Legend was, the team we were still expecting to be that number 2 LPL squad, and their last head-to-head against BLG, Flandra's solo killing, been great, but it's, again, the same issues we've had for all of 2026, and that is we are too reliant on Tarzan. If he doesn't get a proactive pick or a solid start, it seems like 80% of the time just losing the game straight up. And in that head-to-head matchup in the bot lane, I'm giving Kyle a little bit more leeway, but Hope has not been up to the task matching up against any of Jackie Love, Gala, or Viper, any of these bigger, even Elk on Weibo you can throw in, and Awesome on NIP, like any other AD carry that's vying for a deep playoff run. I think Hope has been a distant second individually in that matchup. And then you extend to JDG, who probably has the least issues to worry about, and really I know Weibo Gaming has had their number, so hopefully they're dodging them in playoffs. But for the most part, you still feel good about JDG, and they are that number 2 LPL squad in terms of ranking. And I know they were taken down a peg, knocked out of that top 5, but that's less so to do with them, because they did have a pretty convincing 3-game set against IG. I know they dropped a game, but pretty confidently took that series in that third and decisive game, and that's balanced with the loss to Weibo. So again, you're not climbing these guys. You're not feeling like they're any closer to actually meaningfully contesting BLG at the tippity top of this LPL table as we roll into playoffs, but at the very least, they're not falling or anything. The momentum is not completely shook, but if you remove BLG, these 3 LPL squads, you could even throw in the dark horses of NIP and Weibo. Like, it's not unheard of that any of them are going to drop a series to some of the lower tier LPL teams, which makes it feel very wide open, again, when you're removing that top dog in BLG, because that is pretty much written in stone, and it would be shocked if they are not one of those 2 teams representing the LPL at the midseason invitational. But whoever that second team is going to be is very much an omega question mark heading into playoffs for the LPL. We're still a little ways away from playoffs in the LCK, but that doesn't mean we're here for a bit of a fireworks type of ending, as I believe for the first time we're back with 4 LCK squads within the top 5. And how about a weekend of having direct head-to-heads between the top 4 squads within the LCK, and first place, the first seed, is very much still on the line, as only 2 series separate first from 4th heading into here. And we will begin with that banger of the weekend, a rare delivering of cinema between T1 and Genji in the regular season. We're used to it throwing down in playoffs with usually a 2-0 stomp. More often than not, Gen G doing it to T1 in the regular season, but that was far from the case as T1 has a pretty insane comeback to even get us to game 3, and then we get a peak performance vintage type of gameplay out of T1 because we know this team is at their best when they are kind of, experimenting beyond the bounds of what the meta is. And I would constitute a Mel Camille bot lane as bordering on what the meta actually is. But huge shout out to Pays, who picked up Series MVP, his first one of the split, by the way. But he was fantastic. A 15 kill Caitlyn game followed up by, apparently this dude knows how to play Mel pretty dang well. I know Faker has had some great Mel performances, even though the win rate isn't there, as it's not with most players. But Pays was absolutely the standout in this series, and kind of, the head-to-head against Ruler, his replacement at the time, or, there's a history between those two. They hardly played on JDG when Ruler was on JDG, but Pays absolutely getting the better of this matchup, and Doran continues to be pretty damn consistent, and the story of Faker having one kind of abysmal game of a series and following it up by a turn back to clock GOAT type of performance was absolutely, you got the full kind of spectrum. You have the very bad Twisted Fate game out of him, and then a cooked up Chovy Rumble mid, which was kind of fun. And then you have the scoreline doesn't truly do it justice type of performance on the Anivia game, where he, got a few walls and picks on Ruler, which got T1 back into this game to win in 50 minutes. So even at 2-5-9, his impact was heavily underrated. And then you finally just get an all-around great performance on that Cassiopeia. So we went through the full gauntlet with the GOAT, but I think Pays is the more important thing to take away from this series. And the quality of what the team fighting was in this series is a classic example of why you are absolutely sweating if you're anyone from the West and even LPL squads, saying this is potentially two squads that don't even get to MSI. I think one of them, if not both of them, at least one of them will probably go. But these are just two squads in the contention for top 2 in the LCK, and when you see the power level that they were playing at, you're sweating if you're pretty much everybody else on the planet. It's no real actual concern that Gen G lost, even though they get brought down a few pegs. That's, T1 were just the better squad, especially in that game 3. It was a bit of a draft diffie you could talk about, which is a rarity for T1 to be on the positive side of that. And then we get to the KT versus Hanwha matchup, which was probably even more surprising, even though, we're used to Gen G beating up on T1 in the regular season. KT has been on such a downward trajectory that I do not think anybody was picking them to give Hanwha only their second series loss and snap their 10-game, might have even been 11 series win streak. Really solid bounce back from them. And the reason it's not enough to take Hanwha out of that top spot is really the draft in that third game was a bit yucky. This full snowball, Gumayushi, Draven, Zeus, Olaf comp did not work whatsoever. Kanavi had a Draven bot lane and did nothing to get it going early. Guma has like a 0-5 start. Aiming has all 6 kills on this Lucian, and this game steamrolled out of control so unbelievably quickly and kind of lost in the madness. Guma got camped, and then they straight up got dummied in some 2v2s with that, again, Lucian out of aiming. But what happened to Zeus? How is Zeus getting gapped in an Olaf Renekton matchup when he was down 40 plus CS, like basically without any jungle intervention? So it was definitely not peak Hanwha, especially in that game 3. I still think if you have this head-to-head, a best-of-5 series against KT, I think Hanwha's winning 70% of the time. So we still give KT their flowers to climb them back into the top 5, stop the slide, and now this series is really what spices up this top 4, as now you have T1 and Gen G both at 10-4, KT 11-3, and then Hanwha still in the driver's seat at 12-2. But what's important is the overall game score is only like 5 games +5 for Hanwha over Genji and KT, but it is incredibly contested. And remember, it is the top 2 seeds that really matter for this road to MSI, as they are immediately through to a qualification match, and the winner, you're one best of 5 away from heading to MSI, and I mean, you're basically 2 opportunities to win a single best of 5 and head to the midseason invitational. So it's not just the top seed, it is the top 2 that are highly coveted, highly sought after, and we still have a few weeks in the LCK to actually get through. But seeing KT bounce back in this type of dramatic fashion, you love to see it. You hate to see for them that they have 4 series left, and 2 of them are against T1 and Genji. So obviously, those will be the main deciders in who finishes top 2. But again, you're terrified if you're the rest of the world, seeing the LCK kind of level up here and have 4 legitimate squads. If you were to ship them off to Worlds right now, you'd be terrified of any matchup, and I don't think any Western team would be favorited, even the champions, against whoever that 4th seed would be. So the LCK is well back and truly online. But BLG still holds on to that number 2 spot, even though Hanwha doesn't get bumped out of the top spot. BLG, I think, pretty firmly in the 2 zone. Even if the LCK squads really level up, I'm not putting BLG lower than like 3rd. It was another fantastic series. I talked about Hope not delivering against the elite of the elite LPL 80 carries, and Viper is very much one of those, as we have been continually calling for this guy to return to form. It was another fantastic series. He got both MVPs in the 2-0 over AL, and now that's 3 straight game MVPs going back to their last series, and he's looking confident. And with that confidence comes more resources and more pressure, in a good way, put on him by the team comps and the strategies for BLG. I'm sure Knight is just happy to actually have somebody else playing at a high level, because as I mentioned earlier, Flandre was soloing Bin throughout this series, even though Bin did have some big impacts on the team fights. Solid series out of Jeune, and there's less and less question marks around BLG the more series that they have played as of late, as they finished with one of their actual best regular season records. It's been a few years since we saw something like 12-2. Absolutely going to be the behemoths atop the mountain of this LPL gauntlet. But that is it today for League Unlocked. My name is Eric. Thank you to all you beautiful people for hanging out, supporting us as always, and you know we will catch you on that flippity flip.